When the noise of the world fades, when the distractions are stripped away, and the curtain of illusion is pulled back, what remains a present moment. It is the only certainty we will ever possess. Yet we squander it. We chase ghosts of the past and illusions of the future. We rehearse regrets and anticipate tragedies, but the Stoics, the ones who stared into the chaos of life and emerged unshaken, had one crucial principle that kept them grounded live, in accordance with nature, and nature operates in the now. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the solitude of his mind, reminded himself daily, "Confine yourself to the present epic." Titus told us it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And Seneca warned, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. What they all understood is this: the weights of yesterday and the anxiety of tomorrow are burdens we choose to carry, and in doing so, we miss the only moment where we can act, change, or live the present. This video explores what it means to live by this Stoic wisdom. We won't speak in riddles or pretend that detaching from time's illusions is easy, but we will learn one principle at a time. How to train the mind to resist the pull of what's already gone and what may never come. We will learn how to plant our feet firmly in the ground of today. Let's begin Chapter 1. Time is not ours to waste. Seneca once declared, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." This observation is not only timeless, but increasingly urgent in a world where time slips away unnoticed, behind screens scrolling and the endless comparison trap. The modern mind is a sponge absorbing noise, distractions, and superficial urgency, all while starving for stillness. The Stoic, by contrast, sees time as not merely a resource to budget, but as a sacred trust to be honored, every second lost to regret. Our anxiety is a betrayal of that trust when we fixate on what we cannot alter, or try to predict what we cannot touch. We abandon the only time that was ever truly ours, this very moment, the past. It's a tomb with sealed doors. No matter how fervently you revisit it, no matter how desperately you wish to edit its lines, you cannot reshape its contours. You can reflect, you can extract wisdom, and you can even find healing, but you cannot relive the future. It's vapor. You may set your intentions, prepare your tools, and imagine outcomes, but it will always remain outside your grip. Trying to inhabit it is like reaching out for a shadow. It retreats as you approach the Stoic, sees both the tomb and the vapor for what they are, distractions from the task at hand. Think of your energy like a finite reservoir. Each moment you spend rehashing old conversations or spiraling into imagined catastrophes drains your capacity to act now. It weakens your ability to speak with clarity, love with presence, or build with intention. Living fully today does not mean rushing through tasks for the sake of being busy. It means being awake to the reality before you. It means choosing to be alert, to be deliberate, to be grounded in the moment, rather than haunted by shadows or seduced by illusions. To focus on today is not to forget the past or abandon planning for the future. It is to understand their proper place. The past is a book already written. You can reread it to understand, but not to rewrite. The future is a blank page, filled with potential, but still untouched by ink. You don't live in those pages. You live in the sentence you are writing. Right now, focusing on today is the conscious act of choosing to place your attention, energy, and care where life is actually unfolding. It is to set your feet on solid, fertile ground instead of wandering between the ruins of yesterday and the illusions of tomorrow. It is to stand still in clarity, resisting the temptation to scatter your presence across time. This is the strength of the Stoic. Not that they deny the past or ignore the future, but that they refuse to be controlled by either. They choose instead to meet life where it happens here, in this breath, in this thought, in this action, to say, here I am. What is the right thing to do right now is to summon your full humanity. That simple question is a sword that cuts through confusion, fear, and distraction. It pulls you back into alignment. It is a compass. It is clarity. And when you learn to ask it daily, even hourly, you begin to train the mind to return to presence, not as an escape, but as a position of strength. That is the posture of the Stoic. That is the beginning of wisdom and the end of wandering. Begin your day by writing down one action you can take today that matters. Keep it small enough to be completed, yet meaningful enough to matter. This isn't about productivity hacks or bucket lists. It's about integrity. Do not reach backward into the past, trying to undo what's already carved in stone. Do not lean anxiously forward into the future, imagining perfect outcomes or looming catastrophes. Choose something now that aligns with your principles, something rooted in kindness, discipline, courage, or honesty. It might be calling someone you've neglected, finishing that task you've avoided, or stepping outside for a walk to reconnect with your breath and body. Or perhaps it's sitting in total silence, allowing yourself to simply be whatever it is. Let that single action become your anchor. Let it be the symbol of your commitment to the present when the mind drifts, and it will return to it when doubt creeps in. Return to it. That one action is your rebellion against regret and anxiety. It is your affirmation of life, here and now. And if you can take one action today with presence and intention, then today has not been wasted. It has been honored. Chapter 2. The illusion of control. The Stoics teach that much of our suffering comes from trying to control what we never could. The past. It is carved in stone, unreachable, immovable, unchangeable. The future. It's shaped by 1,000 unseen hands, a constantly shifting horizon, governed by chaos and contingency. And yet we invest so much of our mental energy, our most precious currency, trying to rewrite history or forecast the unknowable. What do we actually control? Our choices, our responses, our judgments. These are the levers within reach. In the vast landscape of time, we only truly command the present moment. That is our domain to focus on. Today is to step into your sphere of influence with eyes open and hands ready. Anything else is illusion. Anything else is vanity, dressed up as concern. Imagine standing in the middle of a raging river, trying to cup water from the current as it slips through your fingers. That is what we do when we try to hold on to what has already happened or pre-live what hasn't occurred. The more we strain, the more exhausted we become, and the less we hold. The Stoic does something different. They stop fighting the current. They step out of the madness. They find the solid ground along the bank where they can see clearly. They observe the water. They learn from it. They reflect upon its nature, but they do not try to possess it. That's the clarity of the present. It does not demand control. It asks only for awareness. Living in the present is not resignation. It is not passive acceptance or willful ignorance of consequence. It is in fact the most courageous act, a fierce deliberate attention to what is real and what is now. It is choosing to invest all your clarity, energy, and discipline into what stands before you, not what is behind or beyond it. Requires mental strength to turn away from regrets that tempt you to ruminate, and worries that seduce you into imagining catastrophe. Presence is strength. Presence is action. It is remembering, as Epictetus wisely noted, There is only one path to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. This teaching is not a denial of responsibility. It is a refinement of it. The Stoic does not abandon duty or dismiss cause and effect. Instead, they redirect their focus from the uncontrollable to the immediate. This philosophy trims away the fat of distraction and fear, leaving only the lean muscle of what matters now. It brings your attention like a blade to the only place it can make a clean cut, the present. Here is where your hands can shape realities, where your voice can speak, where your actions take root. There is no action in yesterday. There is no execution in tomorrow. Only the present yields fruit. With each moment, you train your attention to return. Like a disciplined athlete, returning to the form, you grow stronger. Mental resilience is not a single act of strength. It is repetition. You strengthen it every time you let go of what you cannot change. Every time you turn back to what is within reach, you waste less emotional energy. You live more deliberately. You cultivate a mind that responds rather than reacts. You develop a heart that stays open, even under pressure. The Stoic is not unfilling. The Stoic is unshaken, not because nothing touches them, but because they stand exactly where they belong. Here now, grounded in clarity rather than tangled in speculation. Whenever you feel your thoughts drifting into what-ifs, or should-haves, pause. That pause is your gate back to freedom. Breathe deeply, not as a ritual, but as a return. Let your breath be the anchor to the now. Then name something you can control right now. Maybe it's your posture, realigning your body to match your intention. Maybe it's your tone of voice, softening it to communicate instead of defend. Maybe it's your next decision, what you say next, how you respond, what you choose to give your attention. These are not small things. They are the fulcrum upon which your entire day can pivot. Seize that. That is your power. That is where your life begins again, in the present. One controlled act at a time. Chapter 3. Let the past inform, not instruct. The Stoic does not erase the past. They do not pretend that pain never happened, or that wrongs were never done. They do not whitewash history or attempt to fabricate peace, where there is unresolved hurt, but they also do not submit to it. They do not build their identity around it, or drag it like a chain behind them. The past is a teacher, not a ruler. Its lessons are valuable if approached with humility and honesty. Its grip, however, must be broken if we are to move freely. To focus on today is not to be ungrateful for the wisdom earned through suffering. It is to hold that wisdom in your hands without allowing it to become a set of manacles around your wrists. Too many people let what happened to them define who they are not, because it must, but because they never learned how to put it down. But the Stoics believed in the power of choice, the sovereignty of reason over impulse, of clarity over memory. No trauma, no failure, no betrayal, no injustice can dictate your future unless you stand aside and allow it, unless you give it permission through silence, repetition, or resignation. What matters is what you do today, not what was done to you yesterday. The Stoic understands that pain is a chapter, not the title of the book. You can grieve, but you must not retreat into grief forever. You can acknowledge what broke you, but you must also rebuild. Your future is not inherited. It is created, and the materials of that creation are available to you. Now, in this moment, Marcus Aurelius reflected on the fleeting nature of human life, often as an emperor and philosopher. He was constantly confronted with the transience of all things glory, grief, pain, joy, and even memory itself. He understood how swiftly memory decays, how emotions that once raged through the soul dissolve into mist, How even the deepest sorrow becomes with time a whisper barely audible. Nothing he realized holds its shape for long. In the current of time he wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you." These words were not meant to instill despair, but to shatter the illusion of permanence. We often believe our emotions will last forever, that heartbreak will define us, that guilt will haunt us indefinitely, or that loss will never loosen its grip. But Marcus invites us to consider a truth, more freeing, that everything is in flux. The anger that consumed you 5 years ago, gone the fear that paralyzed you last month, faded even the identity you clung to yesterday is already changing. This reality does not lessen our experiences, it clarifies them. It reminds us that no feeling is eternal, no narrative is irreversible, and no scar from the past is a prophecy. This awareness is not meant to encourage detachment or numbness. On the contrary, it invites us to live more deeply in the present. Sorrow fades, then let us not fear it. If joy passes, then let us embrace it while it lasts. If memory decays, then let us create moments worth remembering. Now Marcus's reflection is a summons, not to deny the past, but to stop clinging to it as if it can offer security. We must recognize the shifting sands beneath our feet and choose to stand not in resistance, but in grace. It is a call to stop rehearsing pain and to stop feeding ghosts. It is a challenge to stand upright in the now, no longer stooped under the invisible weight of yesterday's stories. That is the quiet courage the Stoic chooses again and again, not to forget the past, but to live in spite of remembering, not to erase what was, but to choose every day what will be. Take one belief you hold about yourself that is rooted in the past question. It asks, is this belief true today, or am I carrying it out of habit, guilt, or fear? Then replace it with a conscious choice, rooted in the present, not a lie, a truth you can act on today. Chapter 4. Anxiety is a failure of the imagination. The future often paralyzes us. We convince ourselves that we are being wise, that we are planning ahead, safeguarding outcomes, managing risk. We call it preparation, prudence, even maturity. But more often than not, what we're really doing is catastrophizing. We're projecting worst-case scenarios onto a canvas that doesn't even exist yet, and in doing so, we lose the present. We drift from reality into fiction, and then let that fiction poison our mood, cloud our choices, and hijack our peace. The Stoics saw through this trap. They recognize that anxiety is not a product of reality. It is imagination turned against itself. It is thought misused. It is a mental theater where we become both the fearful audience and the horror-stricken director of a story that hasn't happened. Anxiety is imagination, abused the mind, has incredible creative power. It can visualize, anticipate, and problem solve. But when untamed, that same mind turns inwards and builds monsters out of thin air. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't say the future is irrelevant, but they were precise in where they placed their concern. Seneca, always surgical with words, said, "There are more things likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This wasn't metaphor. This wasn't philosophical decoration. It was a diagnosis. He was telling us that much of our emotional pain comes not from actual suffering, but from the idea of suffering. The Stoic recognizes that every fear about tomorrow is a mental projection. It is a film we write, cast score, and direct in our own heads, and then we react to it as if it's true. We brace for things that haven't happened, feel pain over consequences that haven't arrived, and build defense systems for threats that may never come. The problem is not the unknown itself. The problem is our addiction to foreseeing it. We are fixated on trying to beat fate to the punch, to outrun uncertainty, to predict the shape of chaos. But the Stoics knew this addiction robs us of presence and power. It weakens us. It distracts us. It makes us live in shadow instead of light. To focus on today is to reject that addiction. It is to step away from the spinning wheels of what if and plant your feet firmly in what is it. Is the quiet but powerful affirmation. I do not know what tomorrow will bring, but I do know who I am today. That single decision to return to what is real rewires your attention. It shifts your inner posture from passive dread to active engagement. It teaches you to stop asking, what if everything goes wrong? And to begin asking, what can I do right now to stand with dignity, with clarity, and with strength? That is the Stoic's question. That is the warrior's stance. You are not being careless. When you choose to focus on today, you are being brave. You are not ignoring the future. You are simply refusing to bow before it. The future will arrive. You will meet it with the tools you sharpen in the present. That's all you can do. That's all you're supposed to do. No one asks the seed to worry about the harvest. Its only task is to grow in the sunlight it has in the soil, where it is planted in the day. It is given. That is the Stoic view. Live today as a complete act, not a prelude. Create a daily what I can influence. Limit it to 3 items. Let those items be concrete, actionable, and completely within your control. When anxiety strikes, return to this list. Anchor yourself in it. Let it pull you out of the storm of uncertainty and back into the harbor of today. Chapter 5. Presence is the highest discipline. Living in the moment is not an emotional high or a fleeting state of inspiration. It is a discipline, a mastery, forged in repetition, struggle, and self-awareness. The present is not something we fall into by accident. It is something we arrive at by intention. The Stoics knew this well. They were not mystics, removed from the world, in ivory towers. They were emperors, slaves, generals, citizens, statesmen, and soldiers. They lived amid the demands of duty, the noise of the marketplace, and the storms of personal grief. And yet, despite all this, they trained their minds to remain anchored in the moment. Not because it was simple, not because it was comfortable, but because it was necessary for survival, for clarity, for peace. Presence is power. It is the force behind true decision-making. It allows you to speak with clarity that lands listen, with an attention that honors, and act with the precision that cuts through chaos. It sharpens your senses like a blade honed on experience. It cuts away the noise and the clutter and draws you into the core of what matters. Presence turns distraction into focus, overwhelm into simplicity, and emotional turbulence into stillness. A Stoic who is present becomes unshakable, not immune, but centered, not because they are untouched by fear or grief, but because they are not dispersed across memories and fantasies. They are here, solid, still, and focused. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life." It was not a cry for urgency or desperation. It was a call to devotion, to care deeply about the small moments, to give your full self to each encounter, to speak as if it might be the final word you offer someone to breathe, as if this breath alone contains your whole life. Each breath matters, each word carries weight, each decision, no matter how small, is a seed planted in the rich, fertile soil of the present, and the harvest of those seeds is your character, your peace, and your legacy. Cultivate them well, not just once, but moment by moment, hour by hour, day by day, at least once a day. Stop everything and bring your full awareness to the moment. Interrupt the automatic momentum of your day and step into your body. Your breath and your senses feel the weight of your presence. Don't rush past this moment. Inhabit it. You don't need perfect silence, scenic views, or extended solitude. It can happen while you're drinking water, tying your shoes, pausing in a line, or stepping outside for a breath of air. A walk outside, a quiet conversation, or a simple task, like washing a dish, can be the doorway. But the key is to bring your whole self to it. Let yourself feel the ground beneath your feet and the resistance of each step. Notice the temperature of the air as it meets your skin. Listen to the rhythm of your breathing, the sound of your heartbeat, the weight of the object in your hands. Hear the layers of sound around you, the distant car, the breeze, the soft murmur of life. You usually tune out. Observe the patterns of thought as they rise, speak, and dissolve. Let yourself be completely immersed, as if nothing else exists but this very moment. This is not about mindfulness as a passing idea or a productivity hack. It is about presence as a lived, physical, emotional reality. It is the posture of someone awake to their existence. When you practice this kind of immersion, you are not escaping from the world. You are stepping deeper into it. You are rewiring your mind to return to the now, with ease to choose stillness amidst the storm. The distractions that usually pull you into memory or anxiety, those endless thought loops, will begin to loosen their grip. You will gain strength not by suppressing your thoughts, but by mastering your attention. You become selective, focused, purposeful. The more often you do this, the more your mind learns that presence is not a rare event. It is a choice, a state. You can enter a place you belong, then carry that presence with you into your next task, and the one after that. Let it ripple outward into your tone. When speaking, your stillness. When listening, your deliberateness. When acting, let it slow your reactions and deepen your insight. Let it shape the way you answer an email. Wash your hands. Speak to your loved ones. Let it be a thread. You weave through every hour. Subtle yet strong, train it. Like a muscle, not with pressure, but with consistency and patience. Over time, it becomes a quiet power that moves through you. The Stoic does not hope to be present one day. They practice it every day, knowing it is a form of freedom. And with each return to the moment, they build an inner fortress. No past regret or future fear can penetrate. They do not float above life. They stand in the center of it, aware, awake, and ready. Chapter 6, Discipline over Distraction. In a world addicted to stimulation, attention is rebellion, notifications, algorithms, streaming content, breaking headlines and advertisements all claw for a fragment of our consciousness. Each one insists it is urgent. Each one pulls us farther from ourselves. In such a landscape, the simple act of focusing on the present, of being fully aware of this breath, this choice, this moment, is not merely mindfulness. It is resistance. It is a refusal to be used, pulled, or numbed. It is discipline, and discipline is the true mark of freedom. The Stoics knew this long before the age of social media and digital addiction, but the principle remains the same. The mind must be trained to return again and again to what matters most. Distraction is not just external, it is internal. It lives in the stories we tell ourselves, the fears we replay, and the cravings we refuse to tame. Our thoughts wander not simply because the world is noisy, but because our will is untrained. We drift from task to task, moment to moment, not with deliberation, but with impulse. We become spectators in our own lives, reacting to pings, chasing approval, and drowning in mental clutter. The Stoic sees this clearly and corrects it, not with aggression, not by forcing stillness, but through consistent practice, they begin again. Every time the mind wanders, they gently call it back. They ask themselves, what is in my control right now? And they bring their energy back to that. No matter how small, no matter how mundane to focus on today, requires a fierce narrowing of priorities. It is the art of subtraction. It means rejecting the illusion that you can be everywhere. Do everything, respond to everyone. It requires you to say no, not just to others, but to yourself. No, I will not relive that conversation that wounded me. No, I will not dwell on imagined futures that haven't come. No, I will not scatter my time and attention across 10 different worries. The Stoic chooses to do fewer things and do them with total presence. That is not limitation. That is strength. That is clarity. That is freedom. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish. Because the world will not understand your discipline. It will not applaud your boundaries. It will not reward your inner peace. It will tempt you. It will mock your restraint. It will whisper, why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you chasing more? But the Stoic knows that peace is not found in pleasing the world. It is not found in accumulating praise or juggling tasks. Peace is found in control over your own mind, in the quiet power of living with focused intention. In a distracted world, that is a rare and radical strength. Identify one daily habit that distracts you the most, whether it's endless scrolling on social media, impulsive multitasking that fractures your focus, compulsive checking of emails and notifications, or perhaps even compulsive desires like viewing explicit material, which hijack your attention and erode your dopamine balance. These are not merely bad habits. They are thieves of presence, eroding your capacity to remain grounded in the moment. They don't just cost you time. They cost you clarity, dignity, and control over your own mind. Now deliberately schedule a time today to interrupt that habit, not as a grand declaration of permanent change, but as a courageous experiment in control. Carve out a window in your day, 10 minutes, 1 hour or more, where you intentionally step away from the lure of that distraction. Make this effort visible. Write it down. Announce it to yourself as a vow. Let that space become a sacred interval of sovereignty. Then channel the freed energy into something that restores rather than depletes you. Engage in one meaningful action, no matter how small, that aligns with who you want to become. Read a few pages from a book that sharpens your character. Step outside and reconnect with your body. Speak to someone with full presence. Sit in silence and allow your thoughts to settle. Like silt in still water, let this moment of self-discipline become more than a pause. Let it become your practice. Let it be your training ground. Let it be your quiet rebellion against everything in the world that profits from your distraction. Chapter 7. The power of the present choice. Each day, we are given countless small decisions. Most are dismissed as trivial. What to say, how to respond, when to pause, what to prioritize, how to behave when no one is watching. But the Stoic sees no decisions as small. Every moment, every breath is a crossroads. Every choice is a vote for who you are becoming. And over time, those votes accumulate, forming the structure of your character. You don't become wise, disciplined, or courageous all at once. You build those qualities, choice by choice, decision by decision. And in the end, your life is the sum of those votes, not the dreams you had, but the actions you took. Focusing on today means giving sacred weight to the present choice, not the idealized ones you'll make when you're finally perfect, or the ones you regret from a decade ago. Just this one, the one in front of you, because that's the only one that exists in the real world. The Stoic doesn't waste time fantasizing about a future self, sculpted out of flawless intentions. They work with what they have today. They trade fantasy for formation, vision for action. This shift from imagination to embodiment is what separates those who improve from those who only wish to the world. May bombard you with images and slogans promising happiness. If you only plan a little harder, dream a little bigger, or achieve a little more, from the moment you wake up, you are pulled toward the illusion that fulfillment lives in the future. This barrage of messages, subliminal and overt, shapes a belief that peace, joy, and meaning are earned only after we have arrived at some elusive finish line. It sells meaning through delay. But the Stoic sees this clearly. They know that meaning is not found someday. It is created today. It is not discovered in the distance. It is revealed through present intention. Meaning is not a destination. It's a decision made now. It is not some prize waiting at the end of achievement, nor a hidden treasure you stumble upon. Once you've checked off every goal on your list, it's a posture of the soul. It's the conscious choice to treat this very moment, however plain, however difficult, as worthy meaning lives in the decision to be awake, to be real, to be fully human. It is the choice to show up honestly when it would be easier to perform to listen, when your ego would rather speak to move your body, when it aches for comfort to speak the truth, when it would cost you something. These decisions are not minor. They are everything. They are not background noise. They are the core material of a meaningful life. These are not throwaway moments. They are sacred intervals of formation. They are the raw materials from which character is built, quietly and visibly, but unshakably, when you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, when you act with principle rather than convenience, when you rise instead of delay, when you tell the truth instead of posture. You are engraving integrity into the architecture of who you are. No audience may ever applaud it. No one may see it, but you will feel it. You will become it, and that is the only transformation that matters. As Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He did not say this as poetry. He said it as someone who ruled an empire in chaos, who lost children, who faced betrayal, fatigue, and the burden of unimaginable responsibility. He spoke from a lifetime of trial, reminding himself and us that discomfort and difficulty are not obstacles to growth. They are growth. In other words, the resistance you feel when faced with discomfort is not a detour. It is your compass. That friction you sense when you approach something difficult is your life asking you to expand that task you're avoiding. It is the crucible that will shape you, that emotion you're suppressing. It contains the clarity you're missing, that difficult conversation you keep postponing. It contains the doorway to real peace. Your resistance is not the voice to flee. It is the voice to heed it. It is not weakness. It is not failure. It is a flare from the soul saying, here, pay attention. It is a compass pointing directly toward the next right step. Not necessarily the easiest one, but the one that leads to growth. Most people run from resistance, misinterpreting it as a sign to retreat. The Stoic, however, knows that when everything in you wants to run, it's often a sign that you're standing at the threshold of something important. It's the signal that you've reached the edge of your comfort, and therefore the beginning of your transformation. Is the call to lean in when everything in you wants to pull away. It's not glamorous. It doesn't come with applause or clarity, but it is real. It is raw. It's the quiet, gritty summons to become more than just reactive, to stop drifting, and to start directing your discomfort is not something to escape. It's something to understand, to investigate, to turn into fuel. It's a message. It carries information. It tells you exactly where your work lies. And if you're willing to feel it fully bravely, you can turn it into power. This is the foundation of discipline, not suppression, not stoic denial in the cold sense, but transformation through understanding. When you feel the urge to delay, distract, or deny, you're not failing. You're being invited into the work. Every pull toward avoidance is a doorway. Every pang of resistance is a signpost, but only if you see it for what it is. This is the training ground, not the ideal moment, not some perfect version of you, but this moment, this challenge, this friction. This is where you build the life you claim to want. And there will never be an easier time to begin. There is only now. The path doesn't get clearer without action. The clarity comes from taking the first step. Walk into it. Not later, not tomorrow, not once conditions are perfect, but now. Because now is the only place where transformation is possible. Now is the only place where truth can be spoken, where strength can be tested, where progress can be made. Now is not just a moment in time. It is the whole arena of your life. Everything that matters must happen here. Before every major task or difficult moment today, pause, not just a breath or hesitation, but a conscious pause, a deliberate break in the momentum of your day. Let that pause become your power. It is a moment of sovereignty, a moment to gather your attention like a scattered army and bring it back to the front line of your life. Interrupt the reflex of avoidance, which so often masquerades as busyness or fatigue. This is not procrastination. It is preparation. It is the grounding necessary to meet life on your terms. Ask yourself with full attention, what is the right choice in this moment? Let the question penetrate the noise. This is not about what is convenient, not what is easiest, not what earns praise, not what keeps you comfortable, not what will please others or preserve your ego, not what numbs the fear, just what is right. The answer will often be simple, but never shallow. It might not be dramatic, but it will be direct. Then act on it, with clarity, with resolve. Do it simply. Do it directly. Don't delay, and give your fear time to grow teeth. Don't overthink and construct a dozen imaginary futures. Don't seek perfection or certainty. Those are mirages that stall movement act. Even if your voice trembles or your heart races, trust that your courage will meet you in motion. Simply do the next right thing, not the 100 steps ahead, just the next one. That single act is enough to shift your trajectory. That one moment of clarity slices through 1,000 moments of doubt. Let that action lead the way. One right choice becomes a second one. An honest moment creates momentum. One small act of presence builds a lifetime of integrity. That is how you build a life worth living. Not by dreaming of heroic change, but by standing up in the quiet, ordinary moments and answering them with strength. One moment of presence and courage at a time. That is the Stoic path. Chapter 8, Gratitude Grounds. The moment we often think of gratitude as an emotion that arrives only when circumstances are ideal, when things go our way, when we're comfortable, safe and winning. But the Stoics saw it differently to them. Gratitude was not a fleeting feeling. It was a discipline, a mindset, a muscle to be trained, and a habit to be strengthened. It was a conscious lens through which to view the world. Gratitude for the Stoic was not reactive, but proactive. It wasn't dependent on external events. It was a deliberate act of recognition, a cultivated declaration. What I have is enough. Who I am right now is enough to meet this moment. When you are grateful, you are awake to life. You are not numbed by dissatisfaction or caught in the trance of comparison. You are not sleepwalking through your day. You are alert, receptive, and grounded. You stop evaluating your life based on what it lacks and begin honoring it for what it already contains. You start seeing with clear eyes the beauty of what is here, not the fantasy of what could be. You recognize the kindness of a friend, the breath in your lungs, the sky outside your window, the strength you forgot you had. And by doing so, you release yourself from the exhausting cycle of craving. You step out of wants and into contentment, not because life is perfect, but because you are present, focusing on. Today becomes far easier when appreciation becomes your anchor. Gratitude centers you. It pulls your attention away from the fog of imagined futures and returns it to the clarity of now. No one escapes hardship, but even within difficulty, there's something to value. You don't have to love every condition, but you can always find something worthy of recognition. A lesson, a small mercy, a moment of quiet Epictetus reminded us. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. This isn't weakness. This isn't resignation. It's power. It's wisdom. Gratitude doesn't deny suffering. It simply refuses to let suffering blind you to what still remains. Gratitude trains the eye to see abundance in a world that screams scarcity. It trains the heart to find joy in what is not just, in what could be. And when you live this way, when you see your life clearly not through the lens of lack, but through the frame of appreciation, you begin to slow down. You stop rushing past moments. You stop living only for the next accomplishment, the next affirmation, the next external fix. You begin to participate in your life again. You move from passive consumer to active steward. You stop judging and start caring. You start cherishing. You start seeing value in the quiet and the ordinary. A conversation, a sunrise, a cup of tea, a breath. The more you appreciate something, the more present you become with it. And the more present you are, the richer your life becomes. Not because everything changes, but because you do. Gratitude brings the mind back to the gift of now, not some airbrushed, curated, flawless now, but the real, textured, imperfect now. The now that contains your flaws, your effort, your grief, your laughter, your choices, the breath in your lungs, the sunlight resting on the floor, the clean slate of this new hour. These are not minor things. They are the foundation of everything that matters. They are not scenery. They are the stage at the start or end of each day. Take a moment, just a few quiet minutes, to bring your awareness back to what is already good, already given. Think about 3 things you genuinely appreciate. Not accomplishments that make you look successful, but simple gifts that make life feel meaningful. Not grand gestures or social milestones, but the kind of moments that could easily be overlooked. The fact that you woke up this morning, that you were gifted another day to breathe, to think, to choose to begin again, that in itself is extraordinary. You were not owed today, and yet here it is. Maybe one of those things is a moment of kindness, someone holding the door open, a stranger's smile, a friend who checked in, or maybe it's the stillness of a quiet hour where no one needed anything from you. Maybe it's a warm drink on a cold morning, a beam of sunlight hitting your desk, or a lesson you learned the hard way, but are now better for having understood. These are not meaningless. They are evidence that life, even in its imperfection, is still abundant. Let this become a habit, not as a performance or a ritual to be checked off, but as a daily grounding, a practice that shapes your perception, a recalibration of what your mind looks for when you build the habit of noticing what is already good. You weaken the grip of dissatisfaction. You begin to see that each day contains beauty, even on the hard days, even when you're tired, even when things feel unfinished. Gratitude doesn't fix everything, but it reframes everything. It helps you carry your burdens without becoming one. Let this habit remind you gently and consistently that today has value, not because it was easy, not because it was perfect, but because it was yours, because you lived it, felt it, and paid attention to it. That's all any day ever asks of you, to see it, to honor it, to not let it pass you by without acknowledgement. And in doing that, you become someone who lives with presence, not in regret over the past or anticipation of the future, but grounded in the fullness of now. Chapter 9. Stillness is a weapon in the modern world. Stillness is misunderstood. It is often seen as laziness, stagnation, or even weakness. But to the Stoics, stillness was not the absence of movement. It was the presence of mastery. Stillness was clarity. It was the sharpened edge of a mind that no longer reacts, but responds. It was the ability to stand in the center of chaos without being pulled apart by it. And today, when the speed of life threatens to fracture our peace, stillness has never been more necessary or more powerful. We live in a culture addicted to motion. We equate urgency with importance, noise with relevance, and busyness with value. But what is often missing is depth, reflection, precision. We rush into decisions, conversations, and reactions without pausing long enough to understand. But the Stoic understands that reaction is not strength, it is slavery. The Stoic cultivates stillness, not to withdraw from life, but to engage it more deliberately. They know that silence is not emptiness, it is strategy. Stillness is not the lack of action, it is the training ground for right action. When you learn to be still, you reclaim power. You buy yourself time to think, to assess, to feel, without being consumed. You stop being a puppet of impulse and become an agent of intention. Stillness allows you to hear what's beneath the noise, to hear your own voice, your own values, your own reason. And it's in that space between impulse and action that character is forged. That is the moment where wisdom lives. Seneca taught that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Stillness is the antidote to that suffering. It quiets the mind, so you can see clearly what actually is not, what you fear, assume, or exaggerate. Stillness allows you to separate fact from fiction, urgency from importance, noise from truth. It gives you the clarity to respond wisely, not emotionally, and with clarity comes strength set aside. 5 minutes each day, not to meditate, but to sit in total stillness. No phone, no book, no stimulation, just you and your breath. If a thought arises, let it pass. If a sensation emerges, notice it without clinging. This isn't about doing. It's about being in those 5 minutes. You train your nervous system to stop flinching and start observing. Over time, this simple practice becomes a weapon, a silent kind of power that follows you into everything else you do. Chapter 10. The present moment is enough. The final lesson is also the most essential. The present moment is not a stepping stone to something greater. It is the destination itself. We are trained to see today as a placeholder, something to endure until we finally arrive at success, peace, or fulfillment. But that arrival never comes because life doesn't happen in the future. It unfolds here now, in this ordinary moment. You're living right now. To the Stoic, the present is not incomplete. It is complete. It is not lacking. It is rich. The one who learns to see the fullness of the now unlocks a kind of power that cannot be taken away. Every moment offers you a chance to act with wisdom, speak with integrity, live with courage. You don't need to wait until the conditions are perfect. You don't need more time, more money, more approval. The path is right here, not someday. The Stoics didn't sit around fantasizing about a better life. They asked, what can I do today? With what I have, where I am. That mindset is unshakable. It allows you to rise, not when everything is ready, but because you are to accept. The present is not passivity, it is alignment. It means you stop arguing with reality. You stop demanding that life be different before you allow yourself to participate in it. You stop postponing your own aliveness. When you stop resisting the moment, you step into its potential. You begin to notice details, make better choices, offer your presence more fully, and the life you once imagined starts to take shape. Not in a future far off, but in the very hour in front of you. This is the heart of Stoicism. Not to escape the world, but to meet it head on. Not to run from life's chaos, but to remain calm within it. Not to wish for better circumstances, but to rise with better character. The Stoic learns to say this is enough. And in that enoughness, they find freedom because they are no longer hostage to the past or imprisoned by the future. They are here. And that is more than enough. At any point today, right now, even pause and remind yourself, this moment is my life. Say it out loud if needed. Let it settle in. Then look around you. What can you do with full presence? What can you appreciate without rushing? What action can you take? Not for results, but for alignment with your values. Let that be your offering. Let that be your practice. Let that be your peace.